All right, so this is about ad hoc reporting. We're going to give you a little demonstration of where we're at. It is not complete, although it's looking pretty good. So, bear with us. We still have a little more work to do. But this will be an introduction and a little demo. So let's start off. Who knows a little Latin? What does ad hoc mean?
On the fly.
Close. It means for this, or it translated for this need. And so the need is that you can never come up with all the questions users are going to ask for reporting. You don't have time to make them all, you can't think of them all, and often they're one-offs. So that's the purpose of an ad hoc reporting tool, is to allow the users to come up and ask their own questions, get their own data. Plus those questions are always changing. Now, you have to also balance. So what we've done is we've tried to balance the complexity of the underlying system with presenting a tool that most tech-savvy users can do. This tool won't be for everybody. Our database is extremely complex. Skipping ahead a little bit, but we have right now about 700 tables in the database. And just to document that and explain to someone is a daunting task. So what we've had to do is come up with a way to simplify that a little bit, and hopefully we've done a good job at that. So that's the purpose of ad hoc reporting. A little history. We had originally intended to use Microsoft Reporting Services, which is SSRS, the tool we're using. However, they have ended the life of the technology they're using now. They're moving to a new technology, which was something we couldn't accept the way it was working. Essentially, all these, and I'll get to it in a minute, all these models that we're going to create had to be in memory on the server at one time. That means if you had a very huge database, we had to load these collections in memory at the same time, and we didn't want to go down that path. And so some early decisions were made. We looked at a company called DevExpress. And so what these DevExpress sells are custom development tools. Tools being little things as developers we drag and drop onto an empty form. Could be a button, could be a grid, things you're familiar with interacting with in the application. But in this case, they're very elaborate tools for dragging on entire report developer interfaces or entire report printing. So you're going to see that in a minute. And so it's a very nice suite of tools. Also allows us to custom develop the entire application to our needs. Plus it did the technology back end that we were really interested in getting out of it. So good suite of tools. We've broken this up into two applications. We have the designer application, which is a Windows application. It will be an icon on Citrix, and that is where the most of the designing goes on, and that's where the power users will develop their apps. Then we'll get through it, and we'll see that the designer can save those predefined reports, and regular report users can then open those pre-saved reports, maybe change a few parameters, and then just run it in a browser. So that'll be a link we'll provide the users. So that's the two applications we have. So the concept of a data collection. As I mentioned a minute ago, we have 700 tables. Over 400 of them are for reference data alone. So very complex system. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but databases are what you call normalized. Ours is highly normalized, as you could ask Janice. And what that means is, and you're familiar with, we use integer values as keys for a lot of these records. In case you asked me for one yesterday or this morning. So what's the ID for the screen type? And that's because screen type, wherever you see screen type, is just an integer value. Then it refers to the reference data. And those are very hard for users to explain to users if they had to develop their own report. They'd be linking hundreds of tables to get readable output. So what we've done is denormalize it, or what we call flattening. So for a court case, for instance, you know, you'd want to see the entitlement, you'd want to see the judge maybe, you'd want to see the case type as text. All those reference data pieces get flattened into a common view of what a court case is. And then the user only looks at a court case table in our model and just can pick fields. And so that's one of the things we've done to simplify that. Now Jason has up here some examples. We're not going to go into any detail here, but essentially what you're seeing are some of these models. So for the technical people, what we build are views that gather all this data together, and then in the tool, what we do is build these data models or collections. So you saw this is everything for the court case, which is probably consolidating, Ankish, how many tables? 20? Maybe. So, I mean, so that's everything flattened into a case. We got charge, we got participant, we got document, hearing, and non-monetary sanction. It goes on and on. So, this is the concept of a data collection. These are the fields that, and it's still pretty complex. You can see there's still a lot of data here. The design criteria was to, you know, give as much as possible to get out as much as possible. Yet we've hidden a lot of those underlying keys, integer values, Boolean flags that they don't really need to know about. So what we do is when we draw these up here and put these relationships together, and we're going to get to it in a minute, when the designer puts in their selection criteria, I want case type blah, I want it after these dates, and we'll go through that, Jason will go through that. Then technically all we do is issue one command to load, and these objects know how to load all these tables, and it's available to the designer. So that's in a nutshell the technology underneath that we've tried to accomplish. So with that, I think we've shown them, and now we're ready to start a report. So the first thing you're going to do is we will eventually, right now we have this one collectively is called a data collection for what we're calling kind of a court case. We already can tell probably down the road we're going to need others, probably a juvenile case. You can put one together that's financial only, for instance, where you dig deeper down further than that model may give you. So the first selection the designer is going to pick is which collection are you going to work with. You can start running.
Me to go ahead? All right. Well, right now we kind of have a few options for different types of reports, and they're not too finalized, but the idea is a blank report. We're going to have a form type template, which is going to be generally one full page with whatever you put on your form. Master detail template, which is sort of a tabular type of report. And I think we had maybe one or two more slated, but they're still in development. I'll just do that for now. This is what it ends up, pretty much a blank report. First thing you got to do is we have to add our data model. So you drag this XP collection onto here, and it pops up with this window. And this is where Mike was talking about picking your, it's I guess kind of your primary table. So it's going to be at the top of your tree. And let's say, well, just for demo purposes, we'll pick document. And that doesn't mean you can only do documents. That means off of that document collection, you'll be able to see cases for that document or participants on that document. And you can kind of traverse through your tree and get to whatever you want.
You know, so they're the ones at the top of the list that we have to drag and drop across. And so that's where you're saying that's at the top of the view, and the fields that probably more often they're going to use.
And this is just pretty much your filter control. So anything you enter here will be server-side filtering, which is generally good for performance. You want to get your results down as small as you can at this point, and then again you can do some more filtering later on, but here you want to get as specific as you can. So yes, starting off, we'll just do file date, and here you have all of your options for comparison of values. You know, as you can see, you have quite a few: equals, does not equals, greater than, less than, probably everything you'd ever want. So we'll say, we'll just do greater than or equal to, we'll pick our date here. I guess we'll just keep our result small here so it's fast. And we'll do another thing here, I guess. I think we'll do, well, this is a JCL type ID. When we're finally done, I think what we're going to want to actually have here is it's going to be a JCL like name probably. I think that actually might be available for selection somewhere. These data models are sort of a work in progress as well. We're tuning performance and figuring out exactly what we do need and don't need. And I guess we'll start with that. And
also, at this point, security is applied. We've used Microsoft Reporting Services security. The same that Andrea's put together for SSRS reports, we're using that under the hood. So, you know, at this point, JCL filtering's done, case type, you know, everything you see in SSRS reports is being applied here as well.
And then what you can do is go over to this field list. And here you have pretty much all the fields that you can just drag and drop onto the report. So I'll drop down file date here. And I will also add, where is it, document name sounds good. And here's where you can get to the common case. So we'll expand this, and then you have all of your common case values. So I'm just going to do case ID. And again, this is kind of a nonsense report, more or less, but it's proving that this works and kind of gives you an idea of what you could do. We'll just change the title. We'll go with that. And now you can get results here, so I'm going to go ahead and click Print Preview. I think it'll probably crank away for 20 or 30 seconds. We'll see. Oh, that was pretty quick. All right, you can see the formatting's not real great, but I mean, you have one document per row and its corresponding case. So I guess we'll come back here and do some formatting stuff, like get rid of this time portion. We can order. I'll do some sorting. I'll go ahead and do that.
Getting to the power user, this, you know, this tool is just like any other commercial report design, whether it's crystal reports, SSRS, and so that's where it's going to take some tech-savvy people to be able to generate. But within that suite of commercial tools, this is just as good as any commercial one I've seen.
I'll just sort it by document name. And you can see it, and it's looking a little better. Oh, sorry, I only have the time portion. I meant to get rid of the time instead of keep the time. Oops. I'll fix that quick. That's what I meant to do. There we go. And I think we have 5 pages of this. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on, but you can see that it's working. And let's just say we're done with this. Do you want me to go ahead and kind of go through the saving and everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had to kind of customize saving. You're not really saving to a file. You're saving to the database, so it's all kind of centrally located and just cleaner and easier. but it looks the same as far as here, and you'll just click Save or press Control-S, and you get this. And this is where it gets a little trickier. On the left side, do you want to?
Yes, well, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Left side, we have security here. And basically, here you have a list of all of your JCLs you have access to, and a list of all of, it's essentially your AD reporting, your reporting AD groups. We're calling them categories.
On that one a little bit.
Okay.
This is kind of important in that what we didn't want to do when we built this was another provisioning system for users. So what we were able to do is carry that theme of piggybacking off of SSRS. We piggybacked off the security on the front end, and this is where we're doing on the back end. So Casey has all these roles that get merged into user provisioning. These all match, and we're going to fix up these names. I just did the code gen for it, where these will be real nice, readable names. But these match the folders in SSRS. And they're all secured to these groups. And so we can, and one of the requirements was to have whatever you want kind of at, granular security. So this was kind of what we came up with. Okay, you can do whatever you want, but we didn't want to have to also provision that. So there was quite a wide range of categories here already from SSRS, and we can add to that list without actually putting it in SSRS. We could come up with names that apply to Ad Hoc separately, yet still provisioning through user provisioning. So that was the model we chose here, and that's what you're seeing. And that's where you see your civil cases, your criminal cases, probate, et cetera, and all the other what-ifs, financials and things like that. So that was a nice piggyback where we didn't have to do any provisioning at all, and it's just going to work. So, okay.
And essentially this basically works. You can check whatever JCLs or categories you want, and we'll see later, that's what the end user will be able to view. So once they hit the web page, they'll have to have access to those. And then you can also further filter it. We'll kind of go through that too. But this is basically what the end user is going to, which users are going to be able to see this report. So I guess we'll just check the first two of those, and we'll say this is ADR, I guess. Oh, and kind of a nifty feature, this is a searchable field, so you could do that. Same for here. Call it document report. And this notes field is basically only going to show up in this side of the app, so the end user is not going to see this. This could be like, for instance, you go back and change it and you want to make a note of what changed. It's pretty much for the author or whoever's going to be making changes or designing. And you can kind of throw whatever you want in there. And also, this is this little published checkbox. If this is not checked, then you won't be able to see it on the website. So it's kind of like in development or disabled or whatever. I'll go ahead and publish this just so we can see that later. And I'll go ahead and save that. And just to prove that works, I'll close that, and I can come over here and click the open button. And you can see the one that I just saved, as well as two other ones that I already have ready that I'll show you guys a little bit later. And you can filter this, so you can check, check some boxes here to get, I guess you don't really know what these are all saved at, but basically if you check these, it'll show reports that only apply to those three, and if you don't have anything checked, it's everything by default. Also, another thing that's kind of useful is this report manager window, and it looks pretty similar. Again, these are filter fields, and you're going to see all your reports here, and this is going to allow you to quickly publish whatever report you have selected, or delete, or make a copy, or you can hit modify, which kind of just brings you back to essentially the save screen where you can make changes and save it again. And that's, I mean, the gist of it. I guess I'll open one of these slightly more complicated ones that I had done a little earlier.
You're still acting as an author?
Yes. Yep. This one's a little more complicated. Pretty much it's just going to pull back all of the scheduled hearings between a date range that we're going to enter here. So I'll click Print Preview. And here we have 2 dates to enter. I'll just pick the 3rd and the 5th, and I'll submit that. And it'll go ahead and find all those hearings in just a second. Hopefully. Yeah, and this is where we're going to have to work on performance tuning a little bit, but we pretty much just got our final models. And so here you can see they're ordered by case, and you can have see all your hearings. Some cases have a couple hearings in that range. You know, it's probably a little more of a better example, but still pretty simple. You can do a lot more complicated than this. And I guess we'll just open that last one that I had made up here too. And this one's going to be more of an example of like a form you could make. And again, it's real basic, but what it does is pretty much pulls back some participant information. So I think it's going to be like first, middle, and last name, address, and whatever case they're on. There's some information that goes with that. Hopefully. There we go. So here we just have that.
We have the ability to define, you notice this is set up like a 8.5 by 11 paper, whereas the other ones were small detail bands. We have the ability to save all those as templates. So when you're going to design one, you can open the form template, or Jason alluded to it earlier, to match the detail, but we can set up templates that have maybe certain grouping and footer information, certain title variables, things like that. So we can control those templates that the users will see.
And we'll go ahead and preview this again, and I guess I'll just do Smith. And here you go. You have a bunch of real simple forms of everyone who's named Smith. And you can kind of see, I mean, there's not too much to it, but
Go back to designer, as you can see. You see over here all the things you have to choose from.
Yep.
For instance, you might, just to make this more like one of our forms, take this rich text box, drop it on, and type whole paragraphs, and multiple paragraphs. So they have all these, all these are just standard controls they have available, tables, lines, all that kind of stuff. Pages, charts, you can do pivot tables.
That's pretty much it for this side of things, I think, unless you had something to add, Mike, or any questions.
No, that's the designer side in a nutshell.
One of the things we like to solve with this format is, I don't know if some of you are familiar working with variant and criminal. They have what they call a minute sheet that they use in the courtroom, and we think that this will solve that issue, so we don't have to custom code anything. They can use Ad Hoc Reporting to set up that form and have it pull in the defendant's information and some charges, and then they can have that print out for tomorrow's hearing date.
It's expected to be used by end users.
A power user at the court will do this part of it and save it. Now, Jason, what he's going to show next is what the average user will do. Like Shelley.
Okay. Robbie Gifford.
Is there a management tool that oversees the running of this? Because legacy has always been with Ad Hoc Reporting. They run it, they'll come right back, they run it again, and
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. There are some things generally we're doing in that area. For instance, when we move to DTMP, we're going to near real-time SQL image, and that's what reporting reports mean, both SSRS and Ad Hoc. And that'll be we only have it here in test now, but it will be production stage as well. That's one thing that kind of mitigates that, is that reporting is kind of off by itself. But what you're bringing up, I mean, even though we put these models together, you can ask the question a bad way, and it's going to time out. So one of the things we were talking about in our last meeting is, what is that timeout value? Can you actually cancel things? There's some of the stuff we are working on. Yeah. Well, it's going to help, because we have issues with some of our bigger reports. You know, where they start chewing up the transactional database, and that's one reason why we really want to get this. Those two separate. Reports by nature are generally a lot longer ones.
Starting off, shouldn't take too long. There we go. And this.
Those reports save, like, if I'm a Power Report user and variant, I won't be able to see when it's Power users save reports.
Right. It's by the JCL. It's in a database. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So you saw these. So he saves it by JCL, and this is a bit. Again, realize JIS people see all JCLs, and that's why it's so big. But a normal court user would see one, maybe two, if you're varying, maybe five. But that's where you're going to save it to, and that's stored in a database. And then you've got maybe categories too. And so what happens when this user, and this is where you correct me if I'm wrong, when this user loaded this page, it went out using the standard web services, figured out what groups are in what JCLs, and then cross-check your JCL and these groups.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, in the designer, you will see only your JCLs, and currently the way it is right now is you'll see every category, but still only your JCLs, so you won't see some other course that you're not supposed to see. And on this side of things, you'll see only your JCLs and only your categories, so it's more secured, and you won't see like financial stuff if you're not supposed to, or whatever. But yeah, again, you can just use these to filter stuff, and you can search, and there's not too many here right now, so there's not a whole lot to really work with. But I'll go ahead and click on this one. This is the one that I put together here while you guys were watching. So I'll just click on that. And take a few seconds again. But it'll end up looking more or less the same as the preview that we just saw, except for in this web browser. And this will be accessible through a link within the app, kind of similar to how you would get to SSRS.
Right off the report menu.
Yep. And here you go. You have pretty much the same thing. And go to the next page. And also I'll go over some nice features that you have here. You can search across anything, so I guess I'll just search, prove that works. I'll do, and yeah, it'll search actually across pages as well. I don't think there's going to be any more. Yep. And you can also export lots of different formats. So you got PDF, Excel, rich text, I don't know what that is, HTML, plain text, CSV, and image. We'll just do a PDF quick. Click that and click Save.
Anybody know what image to use?
Microsoft compiled help in HTML format.
Huh.
Or limited scripting.
And here we have our PDF. And I'll pull up a couple. I'll pull up one of the other reports too, just to kind of show you that it's.
Got one more
The
Yeah.
hearing report, weren't the dates parameters?
Yeah, yep, they were.
So you can show how we.
The other one had a last name search as a parameter. Yeah, we got the 2 parameters here. So again, I guess we'll do 4th to the 5th this time, just to switch it out. Submit that.
Just to explain this a little bit, when you were designing these, you saw them show, well, we didn't do too much complexity, but that criteria screen, you could fill that out and put a lot of information in there, but that's not everything they can select. You have to specifically say those are parameters that the end user can change, and so it's a much simpler list, like just the date. But the whole selection criteria was pretty fine, you know, what case types, whatever.
And again, it's pretty much just the same thing that we already saw. And I guess I'll try CSV. I don't really know. Sometimes, I mean, this will work, but you might have to make sure you have your spacing right for it to actually be sensible once you open it up. Not too bad.
Not too bad, but if you wanted to find things for export primarily, you would ditch a lot of the special formatting and make rows.
Probably just a table or something.
Yeah. In fact, that was one of your objects. Maybe you could fill a table.
Yep. That's pretty much it for that one. Guess I'll open up the last one. Why not?
We've also talked about the spinning of this. We haven't come up with how it's going to look as far as the look and feel. I mean, we have no logo. We have nothing on here yet. But we've been talking about
I think we're going to kind of try to mimic SSRS,
right.
Keep it looking as close as we can. It's going. There we go. Got, looks like 100 pages. I'll make a PDF. Creating that probably take another 15, 20 seconds.
use some spinners.
There usually is a spinner right here, but not when you export, I guess. I just have a bunch of these. And that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, that's all I have. Anybody have any questions? Yes?
So would there be, I assume I know the answer, but so would there be some kind of a threshold, like if a court wants a report, if a court maybe that didn't have a technical person called and wanted a report, when we would do this versus when we would do a canned report, or, I mean, has that been discussed at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know that there's an answer.
No, I don't think there needs to be right now, but it would be, I think that that's one of the things that would be helpful once we get to that point. You know, if one court calls and wants a report, that's one thing, but...
Well, it's certainly possible for us to design one for them, but what are the rules of engagement for doing that, I guess is what...
So some courts, we will have to design them for them, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Or is this just available for courts that have tech-savvy people?
Well, have we made it?
No, we have no decision on that.
Do we charge them? Do we, that's where I'm going. I don't know what we decided.
Okay. And at what point is it a normal canned report versus a...
Well, like I said, is it of value to more than
Right.
just down for that task for that day? With all courts benefit, I think that's where you go with SSRS.
That's typically been like a system manager decision, right, Brian? It's up to the manager.
Well, I think we'll have to have a policy in place for my court, where we draw that.
Don't play the report now, selection criteria, that's it.
Right.
Right. But they're not changeable for the user. they can change parameters, but the underlying criteria or business don't.
Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Designers have access to all possible fields, even if they don't actually have access to read them, for example, financial data.
Well, there's a couple ways to answer that question, based on a couple levels of security. The designer, full security is in effect. So part of that power user story expects that your designer can see most data. Otherwise, because they are only going to be able to select what they can select.
Oh, so they couldn't build a report, for example, a report framework that included financial data if they didn't have access to themselves?
Well, a better example would be case types. Or a good example is case types where, you just pick in, no, you couldn't put on the form and select all those case types. Well, it's true across, or maybe case type isn't in the criteria per se, but if he ran it or that he or she ran it, they would not see those case types.
Right, because a designer could put the field there, and then somebody else with access could run it and see that data.
So there are probably logical scenarios where a designer can't see the output that somebody else could, based on what they put together on the form. But nobody can see what they're not entitled to.
Right.
And then there's we're doing the same thing with encrypted fields like we are with SSRF. So that's not in here either, but that will also honor personal security for decryption. You can search for it, and this is like searches in the app too. The way searches in the app work is there's an underlying view that's encrypted. You could put an open text value and then search for it, and that view will return it. But then the app then puts the hammer down and encrypts it before you can see it. Re-encrypts it essentially. It's depending on your rules, because that encryption is different. That encrypts like Social Security number. You can either see it all, you can see the last 4 digits, or it's just all asterisks. So it's a change in form.
Yeah, because I can see the designer being a tech-savvy kid who's not supposed to see everything, and the report user being somebody with higher access that could never design a report.
Right. Okay. But it should still all flow through. So again, nobody should ever get a result out, just like in SSRS, that they're not entitled to see. We are, in fact, designing it for all possible scenarios. And likewise, they could, too, potentially. But nobody will see results that they can't see. Hopefully. Yes? That's still, I don't know. We're just getting to the point where, to be honest with you, from our perspective, is we're trying to finish it. I mean, we still have financials. Speaking of financials, one model piece that we're missing here is financial. And Andrew's is working on that, and they're pretty complex. So, I mean, we've talked about them, but right now we're just focused on building it out. But training will, yeah, I mean, we need to think about it, how we're going to do it. Anything else? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Can you stop this recording?
Yeah.